Saha, and welcome to the Insurtech Story Podcast, the platform to spread knowledge on insurance innovation, digital disruptions, and entrepreneurship. Our website, insurtechstory.com, and we are available on Spotify, Apple, Google, and Amazon Music. Today, we will discuss on the topic the importance of human element in underwriting. And for now, I'm delighted to welcome our guest, Ben Webster, who is the co-founder of Agile Underwriting Services based in Sydney. Ben is a seasoned professional with a remarkable track record on the insurance and the insurtech space. With a passion for developing innovative insurance platforms, Ben has successfully built and scaled multiple bootstrapped insurtech startups from the ground up, turning them into profitable businesses. His extensive experience spans over 15 years, making him a true veteran in the industry. His deep understanding of the insurance landscape, combined with his technical expertise, enables him to drive transformative change and create meaningful value for both insurers and the policyholder. So, Ben, a warm welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
So, Ben, of course, we are going to touch upon one of the very interesting topic in midst of the digital disruption that we are seeing in the industry, the human element in insurance underwriting. So, as we all know, the importance of human element explores how human intuition, experiences, empathy add value to the risk assessment process, and of course, complementing the automated system. So, we would try and highlight the role of underwriters in building trust with policyholders, providing personalized experiences, and addressing ethical considerations to ensure fairness and inclusivity in insurance underwriting. And with that, my first question to you, Ben, in an age where automation and data driven decision making are becoming more prevalent in underwriting, how do you see the human element adding value to the process?
Well, thanks for the question. I think it's important to start with a little bit of history so people know my biases that are both conscious and unconscious, and how I fell into insurance. Before insurance, I ran a boutique agency that specialized in UX and service design, and I was building special projects for banks and insurance companies and NGOs in Australia. And so coming from this background, from this UX background and service design background, I approach insurance as a customer experience problem first. And there's lots of problems to solve there. From there, I then collaborated on designing and building a range of individual digital insurance products, and throughout that process worked with a range of underwriters across really diverse products. So everything from life insurance, health insurance, bond surety, construction, to things like commoditized products like pet insurance and travel insurance. And each of these underwriters has their own deep domain knowledge in their line of business. And it's good to use an analogy, like from Malcolm Gladwell's Blink. If you've ever read that, it's a great book. And in that he talks about how experts can thin slice, a risk in seconds, or, thin slice a situation in seconds. And with underwriters, they can do that, assess a risk in seconds and decide how to underwrite that risk or whether to decline it altogether.
Yeah.
And I think the really important thing with that, as Gladwell suggests in the book, is that intuition is fallible, and our unconscious biases can skew that kind of thin slicing of that instantaneous decision making. And it's important to think as we get more, towards complicated ML models and AI models, that these ML models suffer from the same problem. They've got those unconscious biases baked into them because they're developed by humans, and so those decisions, will also be biased, that are made by those ML models.
Yep. So you did touch upon a little bit of the background on the topic of underwriting, but before we move on to the next discussion point, it'll be really great if you could just take our listeners through your story of uh, starting agile underwriting services. What motivated you, and what gap did you see in the market?
Sure. So Agile, is a fast-growing Insurtech. We're a cover holder at Lloyd's, um, but we specialize in niche commercial insurance products. So things like aviation, cyber, financial lines, accident and health, construction, cargo, travel. We like niche problems, and in Australia, motor, home, travel, pet, dominated by the large insurers here. And there was a genuine gap in these niche commercial insurance lines, and nobody was doing them well online. Lots of people were doing them well, in that traditional intermediated way. Send me a PDF. I'll get back to you in 2 days. And what we've done is turn that analog process into a digital process, but overlaid it with, really elegant user experience for the insured and for the broker or the agent, and sometimes even for the affiliate, and also then made it be able to be embedded. So that was the gap that we saw,
Hmm.
to take those niche products that are traditionally sold offline and through an intermediated space, and take them online and make them as frictionless as possible.
No, absolutely. I think understanding the real gap in the market and the customer touch point is where you get to make the real difference, right? And I believe your primary focus is the Pacific market, right?
It is, and you're spot on, Surya. Speaking to customers is the secret sauce, right? That's where all the good stuff happens.
Yeah.
And insurers have been traditionally really bad at talking to customers. With our travel product, for example, we're talking to 4 customers a month. A customer who has got a quote and not converted, a customer who's bought a policy but not traveled yet, a customer who has made a claim, and we talk to them about that process, and also we talk to claims agents and the agents that are using our systems to understand any issues that they're having, and that is the secret sauce that continues to drive innovation in the product.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think as you mentioned, insurers are historically really bad at that, and I think things has to change, and how technology can make it happen. It's just the time that will talk. Well, moving on to the next point, Ben. Customer experience is a critical aspect of insurance, as we were discussing a minute back, right? And especially in the process of underwriting. So how do you believe the human touch in underwriting impacts the way insurers interact with policyholders?
Sure, we don't want to lose the human touch, and I think there's a few key things to think about here. And the first is actually the duty of care we have to the customer, or the insured. And what I mean by that is, the product needs to be fit for purpose, needs to be affordable, it needs to cover a genuine risk. In Australia, we've gone through a royal commission here around the selling of financial services and insurance products. And, there was a lot of products that were found to be junk insurance, with, gross loss ratios around kind of, 6 to 8%. Customers were just not even making claims. And so, that duty of care is really important, and that the policy needs to respond correctly if the customer ever needs to call upon it, in the time of claim.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think it's also really imperative that the customer understands what they're buying, right? And they're not bamboozled by, definitions and legalese and the policy documents. I've written a policy document, that's 88 pages long, and
Wow.
a lot of that's driven. Yeah, it's a long document, and a lot of that's driven by the requirements from the regulator, right?
Yeah.
Situations arise, and then you have to amend the policy, because of situations from the regulator. But that's a difficult, document for customers to understand.
Yep. And how many customers are actually, looking to read the documents in every policy or any sort of an, such, notes you'll see, the terms and conditions that's placed at the bottom of the page, right? Or even in the online aggregators platforms. But how many of the customers reads it? And even though 10% of them reads it, how many of them understands it, right? So
Yeah,
that's that. Yeah, please go
sorry.
ahead.
It's a very low number, and we know this from our interactions when customers claim, and if they ever are upset about the claims outcome, we also know this from their complaints, right? That they haven't read the policy documents. And in the intermediated space, brokers and agents have a role to play here, to educate the customer and to guide them through the policy. But for commoditized products like travel or pet insurance, the policy wording is the key document for the customer to understand what they're buying. And these two products, for example, have the highest complaint rates in Australia, and most of those complaints are due to the complexity of the policy documents. And these documents are designed by humans, right? So we're talking about that human touch. These are documents that are designed by humans. There are some good examples. There's a great policy document here in Australia, and it's pretty geeky, to have a bit of a love affair with a policy wording document. But I really love the policy wording from Southern Cross Travel Insurance. It's a thing of beauty.
Okay.
Yeah, it's written with empathy and care and understanding for the customer, and I'm really envious. I didn't write it. I wish I did. It's a beautiful document.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. I think to all listeners, anyone who is interested can certainly, try and check it out. I believe it might be available online as well, right, Ben?
It is available online,
Yeah.
definitely.
Okay. Amazing.
And then
So,
I think that there's another area that's key to the human touch, in this process is designing a sensitive and usable process when the customers don't fit the underwriting model.
yeah.
Not all customers are going to fit the model, right? It's
Yep.
a really important to remember that we need to treat them well, and give them an alternative path when the computer says no. We don't just drop them, and we need to be transparent about why they're not fitting the model and why the price may be exorbitant, right?
Yep. Yep.
And this is actually where a real human may need to be, involved, right? So you offer the customer, or the insured a path to a real human.
True.
And then when it comes
Absolutely.
to yeah, that's really important, right?
Yep. So no, you definitely mentioned some of the key areas, and when we talk about the human element in this underwriting process and the involvement or the disruption that technology is bringing, I think personalization, the flexibility, the empathy element, the improved communication need, or rather making things more easier, no, or more standardized, keeping in mind the trust and the reassurance factor. These are something that the thought of human touch, or rather the involvement of individuals in this underwriting process, can really make a difference. Of course, technology will play a big part in it, but there's certain elements where the need of human is actually there, and we just have to understand that. And another point I would like to add here, Ben, you mentioned about the agents, the brokers, on the education of customers part, right? So do you, out of curiosity, do you see the traditional agents led model can actually deliver that, or is there
Yes.
any change that's required?
Uh, brokers and agents, in Australia we call them brokers. They need to continue to educate themselves and stay up to
Right.
date with technologies. Cyber insurance that we sell, there's a definite education gap between the policy and the customer, and making helping the customer understand why they need cyber insurance, in general or at all. Um, and traditional brokers have not necessarily stayed up to date with technology and the risks that have evolved over time with cyber insurance. But with the range of our other products, liability, accident and health, aviation, the brokers that we work with on a day-to-day basis are very, very knowledgeable about their domain. They're knowledgeable about their customers and the risks that they face, and they're trying to find the best solution for them. And they most brokers do an excellent job of educating the customer.
I think that's a very positive, statement there. I think it's the stakeholders involved in the process must play their role to make customers more aware of the changes and what needs to be done to make the process more efficient. Uh, so the last question to you, Ben, is ensuring fairness and avoiding biases in underwriting decisions is essential, right? So how do you approach ethical considerations in the underwriting practices, and what steps can one take to mitigate potential biases? Your advice to the industry on this.
Yeah, we still haven't talked about codifying an underwriting model yet with machine learning algorithms and those types of things. And I think that it's really important to maintain that human element when we think about those building those models. Years before self-driving cars were even on the road, I saw an ethicist give a talk to a room of software engineers. It was a room of geeks, and it centered on the fact that software engineers are at the forefront of ethics these days, and it's something that they need to be mindful of every day when they sit down and they code. And the ethicist essentially went through a series of escalating trolley problems where the self-driving car was the trolley, and it was problems like if you're in the middle lane on a 3-lane highway and you're going to hit a stopped car ahead of you, do you swerve and hit the car next to you, or do you hit the car in front? What if it's not a car in front of you? What if it's a rabbit? What if it's not a rabbit? What if it's a toddler? What if it's a criminal and your car has a facial recognition, engine that can assess, that it's a criminal that you're going to hit, and and on and on and on from there. But he was essentially trying to raise the issue that software engineers have a key role, in the ethical decisions that their models, make, at a human level. And the same goes for underwriting decisions. We're essentially codifying models that are human-made models, and those models are made by the human underwriters who develop them. And so the key thing that we need to keep in mind is, how do we keep fairness and our biases front of mind as we're developing these models? And a couple of examples that I've come across in my time of building models is, is it appropriate to decline cover for a travel insurance customer who has type 1 diabetes? Like, is it ethical to even ask the question about their condition and possibly charge them an increased premium for that cover for that condition? How does that differ from asking, if a construction risk, is planned for a location that tends to flood?
Yeah.
Why not increase the base premium for everyone across the board and just make everyone pay a little bit more rather than ask those specific questions?
True.
And
I think these are very valid points. I think the industry must take a note on this.
yeah, I agree, and it's something that the mindful underwriters that I've worked with are conscious of, but we also need to make sure that we're getting enough premium into the risk pool that we can pay out claims and cover that cover the diverse range of risks that we have. And the one thing that makes me nervous is that drive towards personalised risk is more assurance rather than insurance, and that's more of an ethical minefield where we will the people who are healthy and the people who are low risk will get good prices, and the people who are not won't be able to get any cover at all. And insurance is about covering unknown or unplanned events, and if we get to the point where we're accurately predicting every possible event with our models, it's no longer really insurance.
Absolutely. I think the most important point that I would use from this conversation is assurance more than insurance. I think that's a fantastic way of saying it, and it's a very good and a valid element that I think all our listeners must note on the ethical considerations and how insurance underwriting process to shape on it. Well, Ben, thank you very much. A fantastic discussion, and thank you for your thoughts today. A true delight to have you as our guest.
Thanks for having me.
And lastly, to wrap this up, thank you for listening and see you at our next episode. Take care and stay safe. Goodbye for now.